Hello again, guys. I'm Artie Decker. This is PSN. We're back with week one of the Alabama high school football season. Let's just start out by actually uh, taking a look back at last week and giving out our team of the week. Um, it was pretty easy choice. I mean, there was a lot of really good wins. Don't get me wrong, but when you think about the sentimental value of this one, as Asbury knocks off Brindley Mountain 19-7 for the first win in school history in football. I mean, it gets no better than that. Also, you throw in the fact it was their very first game at their new stadium. Just so much excitement has to be involved in that program these days. I can't even imagine what the pep rally's like for this coming week. So just really congratulations to the Rams, and hopefully this won't be the last one this season. But looking at back at last week, uh, really, any, it was kind of a weird week. Had a lot of upsets, or what I deem to be upsets. You may not agree, but just looking at it from a traditional standpoint, uh, interesting win there in 1A. Hubbard beating Cherokee. I would expect Cherokee to win that one. That's a little unusual. Alexandria kind of struggled with a just usually not a great Talladega team, so that could be interesting. Could be a telltale for Alexandria. We'll see as the season rolls on. Looking on probably here, let's take a look at the Fayette County and Gordo game. That thing lived up to the expectations. You had number three and 4A taking on number three and 3A. I mean, it had the makings for a classic, and it delivered. Unfortunately for Gordo, they come out on the wrong side of that one. This Etowah against the City game, this had upset written all over it, but I just couldn't quite get on board because Etowah has let me down in the past when they have those high expectations that they have, basically had handed to them coming into this season. I know they have some great players, Graham and Jones, some really good athletes, but in the past, they always have a tendency to not get it done when the pressure's on. In this case, they did. They done enough, and they knock off Gadsden City for the first time in school history. So, congratulations to them. A great start. Unfortunately for Gadsden City, the pressure just continues to mount as they drop this one for Bart Sessions and company. Looking on here, let's take a look at Muscle Shoals and Deschler. Muscle Shoals, I expected them to win this ball game, but maybe not quite in the fashion they did. Deschler had a pretty good season last year. I thought they might could keep it a little closer than 31-0, but as we see, that just didn't happen. Looking on, we got our PSN upset of the week. As I said, I'm telling you, there was just something going in that game. I felt good about Collinsville. And Caleb Jones was able to do just enough, basically, as you know, they didn't really get things rolling like I thought they might on their side of things, but overall, consistently moved the ball and kept it out of Plainview's hands. Of course, I mean, Plainview got off to a terrible, terrible start because, losing their running back, Tony Rodriguez, I believe, on the fourth carry of the game towards ACL. They were really banking on him to help that young offense along because Andrew McLaughlin really struggled and just at times just looked clueless. So I mean, there's so many negatives, I guess you could take out of that game for the Bears going forward. But as we said, we picked the Panthers and they got it done. Looking on, we got uh, Susan Moore and West End kind of surprised me. I thought West End would keep this a little closer, potentially even win it. But as we see, Susan Moore might be back to what they were a few years ago. Looking on, we got Coach Bonds and his uh, debut at Tanner. From what I've heard, he's sort of getting the kids to come back. They only had 20 coming out of spring. He's slowly trying to reestablish what they've had in the past. I mean, West Limestone's not a great team, but they're a decent team. I believe last year the score was about 32-20. This time it's 39-20. So you can take what you want out of that. But Tanner, don't count them out. But it's going to be a slow process. It looks like. Um, Looking on, we have the Sheffield beating Wilson. Wilson's always a pretty good little team, and Sheffield had a kind of a surprising year last year, making the playoffs. And a lot of people have a lot of expectation for them. They think they're a sneaky little team there to watch. And to we shall see as the season unfolds. Looking on, we have Thompson just blowing out James Clemens. I didn't expect them to hold them to 7 points. I expected them to win the game, but that was a nice win for the Warriors and Coach Freeman. Pell City beats Fort Payne. It's kind of weird because the last 2 years I picked Pell City to actually win that game, and Fort Payne's got the win. So when we finally pick Fort Payne, Pell City gets the win. So I guess I've just got the jinx on that one. But a big win for Pell City in their debut with their new coach, as we're you know same case of Elmore and his Wildcats. Um, from what I heard, played really well, but just not quite enough. So they'll just build on it from there. Uh, this was kind of a surprise. We actually, I believe, picked A-Rab. Coach Glasscock and his Knights. I don't really know what to tell you. I watched some of the film on this one. The Collins kid for Boaz. It might not be a great team, but he's a very bright spot on that not so great team, and he had a great game and helping them to just basically blow out Arab 42-17. Looking on, we got Holly Pond. Solid little team, always in contention to make the playoffs. I guess you could say. New Hope. It's kind of been a train wreck the last 2 years, really. Um, you know, 2 or 3 years ago looked like a really solid program owning that 3A region. Now, who knows? Basically, had the big scandal with Chadwick getting fired last year. New coach basically shoved him out the door too, or the interim role also. But they brought in the new coach that they got now. I believe it's a great hire. He done some good things with Winston County, and I expect him to do some good things with the Indians of New Hope. But it just didn't start out very well for him as they dropped that one. Looking on, you have let's take a look at Decatur Heritage and Phillips Bear Creek. This game, I expected Decatur to actually win this thing a little more so than they did. They actually kind of struggled to beat Phillips, which is kind of surprising. This Marengo and Pickens County game, it's kind of a mystery. I'm not really sure what went down there. I'm guessing it might be a forfeit. I don't know how that turned out. It might have actually been a 2-0 game. We'll have to do a little digging to find that out. As the runner-up in 1A drops their first game, being Pickens County. Georgiana and St. Luke's. I told you it would be a fantastic game. I actually picked St. Luke's. Uh, Georgiana Ruster really played some defense because if you can hold your main Brown in that St. Luke's offense to under 30, you're doing something. And Georgiana just rolled. Very impressive win there. As we said, Waterloo, the quarterback being Palmer, from what I heard, just balled out and just dominated Woodville in a big win for the Cougars. Looking on, we have a lot of high expectations for Bob Jones, and getting a big win over an out-of-state program being Christians Brothers Tennessee. Huge win for them to get off to a good start in this pressure-packed campaign. As we've already said, Asbury getting the big win. Um, on we have Weaver. Weaver's a team we told you to keep an eye on this season. Got a lot of people coming back, a lot of talent coming back for that taking on a usually pretty perennial, solid Cleveland team. So that's a nice win to start their season out there. Um, Looking on, we have that Grissom Hazel Green kind of sticks out to me. Grissom's got, I believe, two really good kids, like being recruited good kids this time. So I mean, don't don't think Grissom's gonna be that easy W on the schedule, as they showed Hazel Green in getting the win in this one. Looking on, we have Spain Park and Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. They're trying to replace Barker at quarterback, having him graduated last year. Uh, it's going to be interesting. They said they really struggled, but they were able to put it together in the second half and beat Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, a team that's not normally known to be that great. So almost a scare, or actually was a scare for the Jaguars of Swain Park in that one. Looking on, you have Jacksonville knocking off JB Pennington. That's an impressive win. Pennington was a good team last year. I expect to be good this year. Jacksonville also good last year, but kind of faded towards the last part of the year. Looking to, continue that success going into this year. McCallie, Tennessee, once again, I told you they would probably blow out the Mustangs, and they just delivered. It was 42 to 14. Madison Academy might want to think about dropping them off the schedule, having took beatings in the last 2 years. Looking on, we have, as I said, upset week basically was this past week. North Jackson going to the lake and knocking off Gunnersville. Maybe Gunnersville's down. We shall see going forward, but that's a big win for North Jackson, if you ask me. I mean, this is a team that was coming into the season losing 7 in a row, which is the school record for most losses consecutively. So that was a huge, huge, huge win for the Chiefs of North Jackson, and doing it in impressive fashion. I mean, hats off to them. North Sand just very even game going into halftime. I do believe it was 13-12. Actually, Dade County led the game at halftime, but they were able to establish the run in the second half, and the defense kind of tightened up a little bit and uh, just owned them in the second half for a nice little pull away win over Dade County. I did not, obviously we picked North Sand last week, but didn't expect it to be quite the margin that this one ended up. So congratulations to the Bison on that one. Looking on, we have another upset here. You got Southside, Bothwell, good little running back we spoke of last week. Uh, Evidently couldn't get much going. Lincoln was able to hold them to 8 points to get the win. To me, I may be missing something, but that's an upset. Lincoln knocking off Southside in that one. Looking on, we have Sulligent, a team I told you to really keep an eye on this year, not for the good purposes. We're looking for the bad purposes. Losing their quarterback, losing a lot of those linemen off that team. Like I say, we expect a nosedive from them, and this is kind of a telltale thing because Barry perennially is not that great. I mean, they're uh, not to the caliber of Sulligent, and Sulligent actually struggles to get the win, 30-22. Once again, keep an eye on them going forward after such a fantastic year last year. The big matchup, UMS Wright, St. Paul's. Welcome to 5A football for St. Paul's, even though they lost to a 4A team. Or excuse me, welcome to 6A football for St. Paul's after losing to a 4A team. But that ain't you. That ain't just your little mama peg 4A football team. That's you defending the state champion. That's Simon Smith and the Bulldogs. Just evidently played some lights out defense to shut out usually a very high-powered St. Paul offense. In this was kind of a shocker. Uh, we spoke so highly of Lynette. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong, Valley is a 5A school. Obviously, maybe a little more depth. I don't know what went down here, but to me, pretty good little upset because Lynette's usually very good at home, and this also snaps their 15 game winning streak. Uh, so I mean, it was a legit upset, but I mean, I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. I think as Lynette will get back into classification, I think you'll see that they are extremely talented and they are definitely a contender to win the title. We got Westbrook and Chris Christian. This game I thought could be closer, and from what I've read, it felt like it had points where it could have. To my understanding, Kusa Christian gets down there twice inside the 10 and gets no points, and that just basically turned the momentum. And Westbrook hit a deep pass and basically pulled away from him. But Dartavius Britton had a monster game, 17 carries, a buck 40, very impressive as always. But in this one, just wasn't enough as the Conquerors take the loss. Westminster Christian and DAR. I expected this to be a shootout, and it was. But we actually, I believe, picked DAR to win this ball game, and Westminster played the ball, and actually, uh, not only won this game, won this thing going away. Uh, you know, a lot of people have talked about Westminster is going to be a really team to watch, a dark horse to maybe win that region. And it's full of a lot of good competition. So they're going to be that team I think that could be the difference for somebody. Maybe not win the thing, but they could definitely spoil it from some of these other teams that are looking to win. Looking on, we have Clay Chalkville with a nice win over a good Georgia Griffin team. Um, didn't expect that one. I thought most of these Georgia teams are a little bit better than our home state teams, but in this one they took care of business. In the other one, you have Hewitt Trustful, who actually Paul Tyson, you know the story. Bear Bryant's grandson, also committed to go to Alabama. Pierce Quick and I believe tackle also committed to go to Alabama. Worsham, his wideout, also committed to go to Alabama. All these kids, so much talent, but you know they had the lead in the fourth quarter, and they made some questionable decisions as far as setting on the lead instead of trying to go ahead and put it out of reach, and it actually come back to bite them as they had a punt block late and put uh, the Georgia team on a short field being Cedar Grove, and they were able to cash it in, I believe, with maybe 45 seconds to go and get a big win and a very crushing loss for the Huskies in this opener. Uh, Not pictured here, but you're gonna the Battle of Scarum Creek. Very interesting game. To my understanding, it was scoreless halftime. I don't know what Waldrop said to them, but they came out, I believe, scored 21 in the third quarter. Just very impressive. Took over, and the cream rose to the top, so to speak, as the Bulldogs knock them off 28-7. Looking here, last off, you got Hoover and Pinson Valley. This was the big matchup. I thought this thing could be closer. I obviously picked Hoover, but Hoover is really, really good. Um, a lot of people thought losing Shredrick Jackson, graduating, um, losing the other running back they had this past year, so many question marks. Losing Jalen Parker, but Robbie Ashford just balled out, man. He was 22 of 33, 383, four touchdowns. That's pretty good for a debut. And the Hoover defense was able to kind of put the kibosh on that high-powered Pinson offense and get the blowout win, 52-14. 14th. So, you know, it just Hoover being Hoover, and I wouldn't really hit the panic button for Pinson just yet. Let's look at the newest polls we have here. Hoover obviously being number one, but not unanimously. Just keep that in mind. The Warriors being having 3 votes for themselves. Not a whole lot of movement. I guess you could say Austin, as we talked about last week, to keep an eye on them to possibly take a nosedive as they lost Asa Martin coming into this year. Um, tough sledding for them as they drop out of the top 10. Um, Not a lot of change really though. Clemens actually lost that game, but stays in the top 10, so worked out well for them. Hewitt dropping some to 7. Looking into 6, you have Wetumpka taking over number 1 as Pinson Valley falls to Hoover 52-14. This is the first time Wetumpka has been number 1 since '96, so that's a nice little uh, stretch of time to be absent, being number 1. Oxford moves to number 2 with 2 first place votes. Having had a nice, impressive win over Montford, 28-0. Clay Chalkville sneaks in there with 2 first place votes. Of course, Pinson still at 3 with their 4 first place votes. Um, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa actually dropping there to 9 as they lost to Spain Park. Looking on, we have not a lot to mention there. Etowah picks up 2 first place votes in 5A with their big win over Gaston City. St. Clair County actually moves up to number 5 with their very impressive win over Carroll, or excuse me, not Carroll, um, to go to 5 for the first time since '97. So that's big for the Saints. Looking on, we have Ramsey there with a nice opening win, sneaking in at number 11. As we said, Alexandria, it's hard to tell exactly how good they are just yet at number 12. Looking on, Madison Academy takes a nosedive to about 15 or 16 there. 4A, first time since '98, I believe Hoax Bluff has been number 3, so that's big for them as Hillcrest Evergreen actually drops the game to Greenville 29-25 to fall out of the top 3 to number 5. Looking on, we have Jacksonville there at number 11, kind of sneaky just outside, and you got North Jackson with that big win moving up to 13, kind of living up to their preseason rank. Looking on to 3A, you got a very impressive win by Mobile Christian, knocking off um, one of the out-of-state teams from Mississippi, 41-29. Fultondale, as we've said, Jason Jones. I mean, what more can you say? That kid is so dynamic, and just can't wait to see them kick off the season. Sacks, as we said, keep eye on them. Somebody likes them as they have a first place vote this week. Um, you know, really curious to see what Piedmont does coming into this week. Um, from what I heard, kind of struggled in their jamboree with Fife and Ohatchee. So many questions and so little time to answer them. Looking on, we have um, not a lot of change really. Westminster actually sneaking in there at roughly about 18 or 19. So, you know, just like I say, they're going to spoil somebody's season. Just keep that to you. Looking on, we have Leroy being strong at 25 votes to 5-6 votes in 2A. Reeltown getting a big win to start their season at number 4. Um, as we said, Selligent kind of struggling with a not so good Berry team sneaking in there and holding strong at number 9. Um, North Sand actually, I believe, was 15 or 16 last week. They move up to 13. You got Cedar Bluff, who hasn't played yet, at 14. Collinsville sneaking in there, moving up the board at 15. Looking on, we have Sweetwater is your new number 1 over Lynette. I do like the fact that it's very close because Lynette has 12 first place votes and Sweetwater has 15, and then you got Maplesville, who is. I'm curious to see how they feel about this because they felt like they let Sweetwater get by them last year, and now all of a sudden you don't have to just contend with Sweetwater, you got to contend with Lynette. So I'm sure they're feeling like the forgotten child of the family uh, with their three first place votes. And then Georgiana, with a huge, impressive win over St. Luke's, actually gets first place vote this week at number 8. Pickens County takes a nosedive to number 9. That same aforementioned St. Luke's team still at number 11, so just don't count them out, even though they lost. Um, Interesting. You got Valley Head sneaking in there at 15. They weren't in the polls last week, so you know, congratulations to Heath Vincent and his Tigers as they debut this week. Looking to crack that top 10. Wadley uh, kind of strangely drops, even though they didn't play. I don't know how you get that, but it did happen. Now on to the present as we look at this week's games. We got Clark County, a really good team down south, taking on another really good team in Jackson. That game is going to be really interesting. You got two really athletic, exciting teams going to fight it out. I would actually probably have to lean more toward Jackson in that one though. Uh, just they traditionally are really good at home, and I think that could be the difference in that. Looking on, you got Clay Chalkville and James Clemens. This is going to be an interesting game because, as we said, Clay Chalkville coming off a big opening win. Clemens not a great debut for them against the overmatched Thompson team. Um, I expect Clay Chalkville to go ahead and feed off of that energy of last week and get the win in this one. But don't expect Clemens to roll over. Looking in, we have this Hopes Bluff Southside game. In the past, I would say this is going to be really close, but you have, as we've said earlier, Southside coming off the disappointing debut, and Hopes Bluff with I hate to say it, but maybe a little overrated at number 3 because there's a lot of question marks. They lost their quarterback, lost one of their wideouts. They do still have Darian Meads, so I mean, all hope is not lost, but it's going to take some serious people stepping up into those holes if they're going to have the success they've had over the past 2 years. So I would have to say in this one, I kind of like Hopes Bluff to have just enough to go ahead and beat Southside in this one. Looking on, we have let's take a look at. There's Columbia taking on Albertville. This game traditionally is a blowout. I expect nothing different as Del Pruitt and the Aggies should roll in this one. Looking on, you've got Calera going into Pell City. This is the same Calera with the high profile, I believe he's top 5 in the country, dual threat quarterback, potentially going to Alabama, taking on Pell City. Pell City with the win over Fort Payne. I would probably have to lean toward Calera in this one just because of that threat of that quarterback. Looking on, that Daphne Spanish Fort's always a great game. Daphne kind of struggled last week, so it would not surprise me at all if the Toros didn't find a way to win that game and spoil the rivalry for Daphne. Looking on, I expect Wetumpka to roll over Northview as per usual. Uh, Arab West Point will be interesting because Arab's going to look to bounce back, and West Point over the last few years has gotten you know, really better than what they used to be. They're not the whipping boy that they used to be at one point. So would not surprise me one bit if West End did, or excuse me, West Point didn't continue the struggles for the Knights. Boaz going into Gunnersville early in the season, or before last week rather. I would say this is going to be a blowout by the lake. But now it's got a lot of interest to me because now, Boaz coming off their big, surprising, if you will, debut, and on the other side of things, you got Gunnersville, and they're surprising in the negative way, uh, losing to North Jackson. So this is kind of I would say, a must win for Gunnersville. And I expect them to put it together and have just enough, but it's going to be closer than you think and knock off Boaz. Looking on, we have Moody and Etowah. Moody, uh, solid little team, but I don't think they got enough horses in the stable, so to speak, to compete with Etowah. Expect the Blue Devils to take care of business in that one. Looking on, we have Susan Moore and JV Pennington. This is another game early in the season. I'd say Pennington all day long, but Susan Moore, very impressive debut last week. Uh, would not surprise me a bit if this thing's not a little bit closer than what you would think. But I do like Pennington to go ahead and win the ball game. Looking on, Gaston going into Sandrock. From what I've heard, Gaston should be better than last year. 1-9 campaign, very unusual for them. Looking to definitely improve on that. Sandrock, Coach Chestnut, uh, to my understanding, graduated a bunch of seniors last year, so there's going to be a lot of new faces. A lot of people are going to have to step up. But I do like the Rock to go ahead and win this one, probably in pretty impressive fashion. Looking on, we have Appalachian going into Coosa Christian. This game last year, I believe, was 33-20. Expect maybe a little more this time. I think you're going to see a very motivated Conqueror team, having made so many mistakes last week. I think they're going to clean things up and be pretty impressive over an Appalachian team that actually lost 12-0 to a lackluster Southeastern team. Uh, so just look for a potential blowout in this one. Looking on, we have I think it'd be a really interesting matchup because, as we've said, Waterloo has made so many improvements over the last few years, and Hubbardsville at one time was a power, and over the last few years it's kind of faded. Would not surprise me a bit to see Waterloo blow them out in this one. Looking down the list here, let's take a look at this Aliceville and Gordo game. Aliceville, from what I've heard, has they had a solid team last year, but it was a transition year for them. Expect them to be better than this past year, and expect this game to be a little closer than you think. But I think Gordo's just a little too strong for them in this one. This is a really interesting game because, as we've said, Asbury being our team of the week, first time they ever won a game. Then you got Gillsville on the other hand, I believe coming off an 0-9 season, so they're looking for a win also. So this is the battle of desperation, if you will. It would not surprise me a bit to see Asbury take the confidence off of beating Brindley Mountain, take it to Gillsville, and win their second game. And I'm really liking that vibe. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Rams to be 2-0. Yes, you heard it here first. Looking on, we have this Athens and Gardendale matchup will be interesting. Athens playing a little bit better over the last year or so. Gardendale just being themselves. It doesn't matter who coaches them. They're always going to be athletic, and they're always going to be a problem for other teams. Um, Looking here, we have let's look at this Clements and Tanner matchup. Uh, Being in the snake pit, Tanner's going to look to maybe rekindle some of the old magic. Clemens traditionally not very good. This could be a great week for Tanner to build some or start to build something, and I like them to just sneak out of there with a W in this one. Looking on, we have at Colbert County Cherokee is going to be interesting. I think Colbert County they're looking to start a fresh tear, if you will, in 2A, and this would definitely be a good game to get that started as they take on maybe a little lesser good 1A team, but a little lesser Cherokee team who's coming off a loss as well. So I like Colbert County to go ahead and get the win in that one. You got Collinsville going into Crossville. I believe Crossville won this game last year to start their season, which kind of started their momentum. For that, I guess if you want to call it Cinderella ride last year, expect not the same this time around. I don't think Crossville's got enough horses in the barn to get it done against Collinsville again. Expect more points. I think Collinsville is definitely going to score more than 13. That was a really good, bigger Plainview defense. I think with a little bit more of an even playing field, I think Jones and company will really get things rolling and potentially blow out Crossville in this one. Looking on, we have DAR and Douglas. I would definitely take DAR in a blowout in that one. This Decatur Austin, as we spoke of earlier, Austin's trying to just basically not nosedive, and this is definitely not a good game for them because Decatur is legit tough, and they definitely could get it done and knock off Austin in this one and put them at 0-2. Elba with their debut in 2A, taking on Op. I would probably have to go with Op, being the bigger classification, maybe just a little too much for Elba. And also being Elba's first game without Coach Rigby, so just something to keep an eye on. Look on, we have, let's take a look at Florence and Buckhorn. Buckhorn coming off a win over Madison County. Great debut for them. Florence, on the other hand, taking a beating from Blackman, Tennessee. Maybe just a little outmatched in that one. Look for Florence to get on the winning track in this one. Fort Payne going in Scottsboro. This is a game traditionally, if I'm not mistaken, played roughly about 7 games in, 6 games in. You Fort Payne fans might know a little more so than I, but this is traditionally the top cat game. Um, I, I obviously I'm gonna pick the Wildcats. You didn't think I was gonna say that, did you? But I did. But I would definitely take Fort Payne in this one. Scottsboro, from what I've heard, kind of in a transition mode, struggled with a smaller but a good little Sylvania team. Don't get me wrong, but traditionally you would think they could take care of them. So I don't like their chances to beat Fort Payne, even though it is at home. I do like Coach Elmore to get his first win in that one and deny Don Jacobs his win. Looking on, we have this Georgiana Luverne. It is definitely a game to watch out for. As we spoke of, Georgiana with a great first week, big win. And now they roll into, I believe, number 3 Luverne in 2A. This has a potential of being a serious upset. Um, and I would actually probably lean toward it. I'm going to go ahead and you heard it here first. Georgiana will upset Luverne, and you can take that to the bank. Looking to only have this Geraldine going in the 5th game. Um, I would say this is probably going to start out the way it always has, but I think there's a lot of question marks with 5. I don't think this is as solid as the team as what we've seen in the past. As we've seen, Geraldine's just Geraldine. They're solid. They're going to hit you in the mouth. They're going to do the same thing they always do, which is just be competitive. And but I think Anderson and company will be just a little too much for them, possibly pulling away late in this. Looking on, we have this Glencoe Ramburn is interesting. Ramburn haven't had as much success as they've had over the last 34 years. Then you got Glencoe with a new coach, new mindset. He's looking to get off to a good start. This is probably a good game for them. I'm surprised they actually have to go on the road to Ramburn. I would think that this series would start at Glencoe, but that's neither here nor there. I like the Yellow Jackets to get the win in his debut. Looking on, you have. Let's take a look at Holly Pond and Ider is an interesting matchup. Holly Pond coming off the win over New Hope. Um, Ider, from what I've heard, possibly could be down. It's going to be interesting to see if some of those young guys can step up into the spots that others have filled over the last year or so. But I like the Holly Pond to get the win in this one. It could be very close, but just something tells me I like Holly Pond to win in this one. It's going to take a monster game from Higgins if the Hornets are to be successful. Looking on, we have um, this St. John's Hoover matchup is really a huge measuring stick game for the Bucks because St. John's, I believe, is nationally number 3. Yeah, you heard it right. Nationally number 3 in the country, taking on Hoover. So just a huge, huge matchup, just for high school football in general. Um, and it's at the Met, Hoover Met rather. Uh, just something tells me that Hoover's going to find a way to actually win this game, and basically make their claim at maybe being the best team in the country. Moving on, we have Jacksonville Alexandria. As we spoke of, we're a little iffy on Alexandria, and we're really high on Jacksonville. I like them to go into Death Valley and knock off the Valley Cubs in this one. Looking on, we have great matchup. Whoever made this game, just God bless you. You got the Red Devils of Maplesville rolling into Fultondale. So much talent, so many wins between the two. It's going to be great. I mean, if I could go to any game this week, it would definitely be on my list. Um, so hard to pick, but I actually would probably have to go with the bigger classification being 3A, maybe a little more depth than Maplesville, and go with Jason Jones and the Fulton. Looking on, we have New Hope section, as we spoke of earlier. New Hope trying to basically establish some New Hope going into section who, Coach Powell's done a fantastic job with so far. He's looking to take that next step this year, potentially, maybe somehow sneaking in the 4th spot and making the playoffs. And I actually like the Lions to go ahead and get the debut win in this one. Looking on, we have Oxford going into Gadsden City. Ooh, this is bad if you're Bart Sessions. You got a really good Oxford team rolling into your house, and your house is kind of messy at right now. I mean, they're going to need a monster game from Jamontez Woods running the football if they're going to knock off Oxford. I just don't see it happening. Um, it, this could be a game that's either going to bury Gaston City or it could just totally ignite the program if they could find a way to get the win. But I would lean towards the falling apart side, as I would definitely go with Oxford in a potential blowout. Looking on, we would have Piedmont going into Addison. Talk about a weird matchup. Addison, uh, you know, traditionally a winning program, but not quite to the caliber of Piedmont. So, if as we've said, Piedmont, a lot of questions coming in this season. Maybe Steve Smith knew something we didn't and picked a great game to open up to try to iron out some of the kinks. But we do like Piedmont to go ahead and go on the road and probably get a pretty big win in margin in that one. Looking on, this is definitely a game I've got my eye on. You got Ledbetter and his Bears. A rough, rough, rough debut last week at Collinsville. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, this game, I thought, that's a win. They're gonna find a way to beat Collinsville. They're gonna find a way to beat North Jackson and be 2-0. No, now we're kind of changing that whole mentality. There's so many question marks. Uh, McLaughlin, as we spoke of earlier, really struggled. They don't really have a running game without Rodriguez. I don't know how they're going to score. Just to be straight with you. Um, and North Jackson obviously can play some defense because having shutting out Gunnersville, misery loves company. This is definitely that game for you. And I actually like the Chiefs to get the win at home, go to 2-0, and drop Ledbetter and Company to 0-2. Looking on, we have Raglan going into Westbrook. This is an interesting game because Coach Mintz actually came from Raglan last year. I believe this is his second year at Westbrook. So a lot of personal feelings there, I guess you could say. But Raglan really struggled last week, and Westbrook didn't play great, but they played well enough, and I expect them to get the win in this one and go to 2-0, beating his old school. As we spoke of, Sachs, a lot of expectations, should go into Cleveland County and take care of business. This Sardis Sylvania game, always very competitive, and I expect nothing less in this one. Coach Putnam and company, they played pretty well from what I've heard at the Jamboree last week. Sardis potentially could be a little bit less explosive as they've been in the last 2 years. So I would actually have to lean towards the Rams to go ahead and get the win at home. Maybe just a little too much beef up front, and of course Shaver's running the football, as the Rams should get the win. But a little closer than you think. Looking on, we have Sparkman going into Hazel Green. Hazel Green coming off a little bit of a shocking loss last week to Grissom, and Coach White and company trying to keep their momentum going from last year. I expect them to go ahead and get the win in that one. Looking on, we got Spring Garden going into Cedar Bluff. No, this is not your de facto region title game from the past 5 to 6 years in 1A. This is actually the debut of the new 2A Cedar Bluff Tigers as they take on the old foe of Spring Garden. Um, this is an interesting game because it's huge in a mentality standpoint. Because if Cedar Bluff loses this game, then they got to take on the bear of a schedule in that region with a loss. So huge must-win game for Cedar Bluff, and having Ivy and company, I believe graduated from Spring Garden, maybe not quite as powerful as they've been in the last 3 to 4 years. I actually like Cedar Bluff to go ahead and get the win in this one. Looking on, we have this could be a really good one. St. Clair County rolling into Cherokee County. Cherokee County with their debut. St. Clair County with a very impressive win last week. Uh, Definitely, if I'm Cherokee County, did not want to debut with the Saints of St. Clair County. It's gonna be could be close, but you got to keep in mind this is not Cherokee County of last year. Tyrene Dupree graduated. Several others graduated. This could be a blowout for the Saints. Looking forward here, let's look at Sweetwater Thomas. Thomasville's always good. I believe they're 4A if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Taking on obviously the defending state champions in 1A, Sweetwater. This could be a great game. I'd probably have to lean toward Thomasville to knock them off, though, as they will only stay at number one for a week. I do believe. Looking forward here, this is another great matchup. Kudos to whoever scheduled this one. You got your, as we spoke of, defending 4A state champion, rolling in the Mobile Christians, who's had a lot of success in 3A over the last 2 to 3 years, having been a runner-up 2 years ago in 3A. I would definitely have to go with UMS Wright, even though it looks like a great matchup. I think they got a little too much for them. Simon Smith, another monster game, and the Bulldogs get the W in this one. Looking on, you got Valley Head going into Alabama School for the Deaf, ASD if you like it. Um, this says that it's one of those games because ASD year in year out very competitive, solid team, and you got Valley Head, new system, Coach Vincent has he drilled all that in there good. It's going to be interesting, but I do like the Tigers to go ahead and get the win in a closer than you think ball game. Looking on, we have that West Limestone going to East Limestone. West Limestone, as we spoke of earlier, improved team, and then you got East Limestone, little extra added factor as CJ Yarborough actually transferred over there from Tanner. So I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with him. I'm assuming they're going to put him at quarterback, but I'm not positive. So that could definitely help them boost them as they've had a lot of success over the last 2 3 years. Maybe he could be the thing that could push them over the top, make them a real. This Westminster Madison County game, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. If I want to do an upset special, this would definitely be on my list. Westminster with a lot of momentum, and then you got Madison County, not so much momentum. Losing Matt Flint and the other kid that went to LSU, two really good, college caliber players. Could be a tough year for Madison County, honestly, having lost to Buckhorn that opening game. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say it. Westminster gets the win and upsets Madison County on the road. White Plains going into Ohatchee. Ohatchee should open up with a W in that one. Woodland, nice win last week, but going into Wadley, probably going to be a little too much. Wadley in that one. And looking down here, we got Woodville going to Pisgah. Pisgah with a lot of excitement, come off a win in their jamboree over Ider. I know their numbers are way up. I believe they only had 25 last year. I believe they had 44 to 50 this year. Huge, huge, boost and excitement and interest in that Pisgah program as Luke Pruitt takes over there. So obviously, um, Woodville having took a pounding from Waterloo and Pisgah being improved. I like a blowout and I like an opening W for Luke and his Eagles in that one. Looking to our new little segment, um, we have a question from our correspondent, Brock Bennett. His question is, looking back to last week, you had Bo Nix really struggle against the Bucks. Why do you think that is? Well, to answer your question, I would say this. Obviously, it's Hoover Bucks. That defense is really good. They were really good last year. The offense was kind of the thing that held them back. So this is a group that was good last year, and I believe could be improved even more so this year. So that wasn't you little Pop Warner defense that Bo Nix was taking on. Another thing you got to factor in is just the turnover factor for Pinson Valley. You lose your starting running back, Traversed. You lose Daly at one of the wideout spots. You lose Henderson at one of the other wideout spots. And the only one you have back out of that three-headed monster that he had thrown to was Holloman. And obviously, the Bucks probably keyed on him very well, so he really had nowhere to go with the ball. Really struggled in the first half, but finally kind of got it under control and played pretty solid in the second half. I believe somewhere in the ballpark of 20 or 41 for 210 and maybe two touchdowns and maybe an interception on that. So basically, um, I wouldn't panic on Bo Nix. I think he's still going to have a great year, but it's the Bucks. It's probably the best defense he's going to see all season. So, like I say, just don't hit the panic button on him just yet, and expect big things from him. My other correspondent, Nikita Magnum, his uh, sort of question for the week is he's got two teams on upset alert. One of those being Valley Head as they travel to ASD. He's asking, do I agree? Uh, as we spoke of when we picked this game, we picked Valley Head, obviously. But I will say this: uh, having a new coach, new system, I'm expecting it to be somewhere in that, you know, mold of that Fort Payne style offense. Can the kids that they have there, can they fit into those spots? That's going to be the biggest thing going in this season to watch for me when it comes to Valley Head. There's a lot of transition. Being with ASD, this is year in year out football for them. So this is they're going to be prepared. Will Valley Head be prepared? That's going to be your question, and we shall see. Looking on here, his other upset of the week, kind of a shocker. He actually is putting five, number two and 2A, on the upset alert going uh, as Geraldine comes to town. This one's a little bit of a stretch for me. Five, it seems like, could be the year that they fall, and they never do really. They just find ways to reload, however you want to put it. Um, One of the interesting things for them coming this season, they lose Lyles to graduation. I believe uh, the long kid will be the only really outstanding lineman that they'll have this time. And obviously, losing Benefield at quarterback, they'll have to fill that up. So what they've done is they've moved Anderson to minor, at least in the spring game. They moved Anderson to quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see if that works out for him because I'm not a big fan of it. I think that definitely takes away from his explosiveness as a running back, putting him at that quarterback position. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Defensively, I thought they looked a little vulnerable in spots at that spring game. And, looking back to last week, to my understanding, they played Piedmont to a 14-14 tie. We've already talked about the question marks there with Piedmont. So that's just take what you want out of that. And then you get Ohatchee, who a lot of people said actually beat both of those teams. Uh, I believe it was 7-0 in that one. So there's some question marks there. So I understand the concern. I understand the potential in the upset. But if I had to say, I would say no. I don't think Geraldine has the speed to compete with five. Um, as I said, it would not surprise me a lick to see it be competitive for quite some time, but I just don't see it quite happening in that one. So if I had to pick between the two of who would be more likely to go down, I would definitely take Valley Head, but I'm not really feeling either one of those actually happening. So I hope that answers your question. As always, love you guys. Appreciate what you bring to the show. But that pretty much wraps us up for the week. Um, Everybody be safe. Have a great time until next week. I'm Artie Decker. This is PSN signing off, saying save me a spot by the fence, and God bless you.